Good morning. If you're a Citroen fan, please stop watching now. I'm sure you know best, and I'm sure you know that I've been paid off by the competition. Still here? Don't tell me I didn't warn you. This is DS4, formerly known as Citroen DS4. Back in 2010, PSA marketing gurus realized, and rightly so, that nobody wants to buy expensive Citroens, and as a result, margins are low. C6 may have been a fantastic car, but there aren't many idiots rich enough to pay 50 grand for a French car.
This is why Citroen decided to create a luxury sub-brand and now a completely separate brand. You can have the C3-based DS3, C4-based DS4, and not a C5-based DS5, because DS5 is based on the compact platform like DS4. Now, DS3 is an interesting interpretation of a lifestyle city car which doesn't have to be a mini. As far as DS5 is concerned, well, Citroen and I have an agreement that we like each other, and therefore I shall not discuss DS5 ever again. And what about DS4? My first and last encounter with this car was back in 2011, soon after it was launched. From my first notes, I recall too high driving position, hard rear bench, and insufficient space for feet under the driver's seat. And the rear doors open to hit an average adult in the chest. So far, I see only the rear bench has improved. There is barely enough legroom and headroom for a 175 cm tall passenger like myself. There is a tunnel running through the middle. Ski hatch is a plus. On the minus side, the door opening is so narrow, you have to do the limbo dance to get in and out. The 359-liter boot has regular shape. There are shopping bag hooks, a torch, which could be LED, otherwise my smartphone gives better light. There is a mini spare under the floor. The only problem is the high boot sill. In the front, have you seen Citroen C4 interior? So you know what the DS4 looks like. Designers did a copy-paste job and added a few DS logos, and then went for a drink. There is a panoramic windscreen we know from C3 and C4 Picasso. Access to USB port is so difficult you better leave the cable plugged in forever, although MirrorLink only works with some phones and obviously mine is not on the list. But I did manage to reset the whole system a couple of times. DS4 looks much more interesting on the outside, where it's a blend of a compact hatchback, coupe and a crossover. After the facelift, there are now two variants, regular DS4 and DS4 Crossback like this one, with 30mm higher ground clearance. This means you can easily drive it over a speed bump. Jokes aside, plastic panels around the wheel arches give the DS4 a kind of rugged look, which should satisfy the trendy cafe crowd.
This pressed fleet DS4 Crossback is powered by a 1.6 turbocharged petrol engine pumping out 165 horsepower. It's the improved version of the old 155 horsepower power plant. Other petrol choices are a 211 horsepower 1.6 or a 130 horsepower 1.2. There are two diesels, 1.6 and 2 liters, with the power ranging from 120 to 181 horsepower. Now, unless you really want an automatic, you could go for the 1.2 130 horsepower petrol. It's good enough to pot around in the city. However, if you're buying a car for the city, you probably want the automatic. Unfortunately, there is a small problem with the automatic. At low revs, the gearbox seems to hesitate a split second before shifting between first, second and third. The higher the gear and the higher the speed, the less obtrusive it is. I asked my colleagues about their experience with the 6-speed auto and petrol Pugs and Citroens, and they all mentioned this slight jerking when shifting in lower gears. Like in the C4, also the DS4 steering is uninvolving. The car turns in the general direction I pointed in, but I need to make big turns with the wheel. I'd rather have more direct steering, but French car fans will tell me I know nothing about the finesse of French engineering. Peugeot and Citroen clients actually want vague steering and dodgy shifters.
Visibility over the shoulder is poor as expected, but visibility in the rearview mirror is surprisingly good for this sort of a car. Parking sensors and reversing camera make parking easier.
Suspension is a failed compromise between poor damping and insufficient stiffness. It's as if someone decided to turn a Peugeot RCZ into a crossover, which from a technical point of view is probably what happened. Generally speaking, you're not going to race the DS4, but you're going to feel every pothole, which is a bummer for an off-road looking car. However, I think I figured out what this car is for. Obviously, it's not for city driving, because in the city there is the dodgy shifter. It's not for going off-road because of the dodgy suspension. What it is for, and it's actually really good, it's for long journeys, long motorway cruises, or long kind of straight and even road cruises. When the surface is good, you can travel with speeds up to about 130, 140 kilometers. It's relatively quiet, it's relatively fuel efficient, and this is what this car is for. Nothing else.
I'm trying really hard to find something positive and unique about the DS4. Okay, so you can separately adjust the colors of the display and the digits on the display, but that's something you can do in a C4 as well, and it's useless. The seats are comfy and supportive, and so are the ones in C4. You can have fancy leather upholstery, but then things get really expensive.
If you haven't seen the price list yet, tell me, what do you think this car costs? I'll give you a clue. A regular DS4 starts at around 27,000 euro. Take a wild guess. €33,000, and if you want the fancy leather upholstery with leather dashboard, you have to add another 5 grand on top of that. From this perspective, Ford Mondeo Vignale sounds like a deal of the century.
Fortunately for Citroen, there seems to be a decent demand for DS cars in China, so I can go and bugger off and ask you whether you'd spend your hard-earned €30,000 or so on a blinged up Citroen. Let me know in the comments below, subscribe, rate and share, click the link on the screen to watch more of my videos, and if you like what I do, please consider donating to my Patreon or PayPal. You'll find the links in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.